We are seeing major conflict mounting around the world, and this is all focusing on what is happening in the Middle East involving the United States, Israel, Iran, and Iran's nuclear facilities. Now, I'm going to be sharing with you the latest headlines, video footage, and articles so that way you can see it for yourself. As take a look at the headlines coming out today, April 23rd, 2025. Trump says the United States and Israel, they are on the same side over Iran. You can see Israel today prepares for Iran missile strikes. This article coming out April 23rd, 2025. Now, in the meantime, take a look at this. Iran to brief China as it accuses Israel of undermining the U.S. nuclear talks. We are seeing Israel and the United States working together hand in hand. We're hearing Iran is now seeking an alliance, seeking support in China. Also, Putin discusses U.S.-Iran nuclear talks with leader Oman in Moscow. We're hearing that Russia is also getting support. Iran is getting support from Russia. And take a look, coming out 4 days ago, exclusive, Israel is still eyeing a limited attack on Iran's nuclear facilities. As we're hearing the United States, Donald Trump is saying by no means can we have Iran have their hands on a nuclear weapon. We need to stop their nuclear facilities, their buildup, the enrichment of their uranium. We cannot by any circumstance allow them to get their hands on nuclear weapons. Now, I'm going to be sharing with you the latest that is coming out on this so that way you can see it for yourself. But we're hearing that right now, whatever Israel does, the United States supports. The U.S. said that there could be attacks on Iran and their nuclear facilities. And if that happens, it is going to be coming at the hands of Israel. The U.S. and Israel be working together on this. Now, let me know your thoughts. Do you think that this is good? That the U.S. and Israel could potentially be shutting down Iran, shutting down nuclear deals, shutting down their facilities? If so, put yes in the comments. If you think no, put no. Let me know your thoughts, but it looks like sides are being drawn here. You can see Iran is getting Russia and Chinese support, and Israel, the support of the United States. So let me know your thoughts in the comments. Now, before we dive in, do me a quick favor. If you appreciate the updates, don't forget, take a quick second, hit that like button, help spread this out further across the YouTube platform so more people can get the latest updated information. That simple gesture helps out a ton. I appreciate it. Also, to stay up to date, it's totally free. Why not? Go ahead and hit that subscribe button, turn on that notification bell, and as you guys know here on the channel, I cite all the sources. They are hyperlinked in the description. I put them right on the screen so you can see the dates, see where they're coming from, and you can rest and know that this is the latest information. And if you appreciate that, like I said, take a second, hit that like button for me. But let's go ahead and take a look, and let's actually start off with some video footage so that way you can see it for yourself what has been coming out on this. This one's coming out from Fox News, and it says Iran must end its enrichment program. Foreign policy experts are saying, they said Iran, they cannot by any means have enriched uranium to the point where they can have a nuclear weapon. Let's go ahead and take a look.
All right, for more on these key Trump foreign policy developments, let's bring in U.S.-Israel Education Association Director of Policy and Foreign Policy Consultant, E.J. Kimball, and former Deputy Pentagon Press Secretary under President Biden, Sabrina Singh. Guys, thank you for joining us this afternoon. E.J., all this discussion, can Iran have any nuclear program as long as they don't build a bomb, or does it all have to be ripped out?
Look, the Iranians need to get rid of this enrichment program completely. I was just in Israel a couple weeks ago, and everyone that I met with there was very clear
the Israelis want no part of
there will be no
program.
Iranian nuclear program there. Finished. And the Israelis, even though we've heard the leaks that came out with the New York Times article about the President Trump waving off an Israeli strike, the Israelis are going to get rid of this threat if they feel that it threatens their existence. And we saw that today in Lebanon with a strike on a suspected Hezbollah house. The Israelis are not going back to an October 6th mindset. And for the U.S. here, it has to be very clear to the Iranians that they will not be allowed to continue with this nuclear enrichment program. And the only way to actually get that across is to have a credible military threat. The moving of a second aircraft carrier into the region, the attacks on their proxies in Yemen have sent a message to the Iranians that something needs to change or you will not be here anymore.
Sabrina, you guys went through this months, years with the Iranians trying to restart some type of nuclear agreement. Why did that fail, and can it succeed now?
Well, it failed because under the first Trump administration, Donald Trump withdrew the United States from that agreement. So you're looking at why we are here today. It is because of that collapse that the administration originally pulled us out of that.
Getting them a new deal, that attempt failed.
I think right now, Iran is economically, financially, and militarily isolated. And because of, what the United States did with Israel and some of the responses to Iran's attack on Israel, Iran is severely weakened. So it is a good moment for the Trump administration to take advantage and continue these talks. And I think it's good to see, I think another third round of talks are going to happen possibly next weekend. This is a good thing. We never want to see Iran get to the point where they can reach a nuclear weapon. But again, I know we're at this moment and we want to put it into context, but context is important, that we're basically negotiating with the deal that Donald Trump pulled the United States out of now.
Can Donald Trump, the Trump administration, President Trump, get a better deal than the deal that the Obama administration reached in 2015?
I think it's possible to get a better deal, but it also depends on what the Iranians are willing to do. Any negotiation cannot succeed if the sides don't have any overlap in their red lines. So right now, the Iranians' red lines are contradicting our red lines. And if that's the case, there will be no deal. There is no way to make a deal there. But President Trump looks at deal making and foreign policy in general holistically. He's looking at it not just diplomatically, but the military posturing, economics, and trade. All of that comes together, and that's where this maximum pressure campaign on the Iranians, it's still ramping up. They're still being hit. I mean, he's been in less than 100 days. This is still impacting, and it is growing and getting more challenging for the Iranian regime to keep control in the country and keep the people satisfied with where things are going. So they can make a better deal. The Iranians want a guarantee that the deal won't be, changed in the future. The only way to do that is to have it as a treaty in the Senate. And there's no way that the United States Senate is going to approve a deal that allows Iran to still be able to enrich uranium.
It's a high bar. And, you have Steve Witkoff, who's negotiating this, also dealing with Russia negotiations. So Secretary of State Marco Rubio, here's what he had to say about the patience that the United States has in those discussions. Listen to this.
The president has spent 87 days at the highest level of his government, repeatedly taking efforts to bring this war to an end. We need to determine very quickly now, and I'm talking about a matter of days, whether or not this is doable over the next few weeks. If it is, we're in. If it's not, then we have other priorities to focus on as well.
So if the United States is out, Sabrina, what's the next step?
Well, I think also important here is that, as president-elect, Donald Trump said he would end this war on day one. And what you're seeing is diplomacy is very difficult. And you have an actor in Vladimir Putin who's really not serious about these negotiations. I mean, you have to also remember that very early on in the administration, Donald Trump, Marco Rubio, others put a clean ceasefire on the table, and Ukraine accepted that, and Russia did not. So I think the important question here is, if the United States walks away from these talks that they've been overseeing, what does that mean for military support? Does Ukraine not get any military support anymore from the United States? Is intelligence sharing turned off? And then I think broader, what kind of message does that send to our allies and partners? Because the message it sends to Russia, to China, to Iran, it's very clear that we're willing to walk away from a partner in Europe. And I think that is going to send a huge ripple effect throughout the geopolitical system.
EJ, does President Trump come back if these negotiations fail and put sanctions on Russia, pressure Russia, or, where does the U.S. go from there?
There's already sanctions on Russia, and Russia's been isolated to a large extent for the past few years. I think this is why it is so important and critical to secure a minerals deal with Ukraine, because it invests the United States directly in their future. And the discussions are that this will get signed this upcoming week, but that is vitally important to put some additional levers against Russia, because right now that is the big challenge, is what does the U.S. have outside of a military strike, which the U.S. is not prepared to do or engage? What other levers can we use with the Russians to bring them to the table?
Okay, EJ Kimball, Sabrina Singh, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. Really appreciate it.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily.
Guys, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. And also, let's go ahead and take a look now at this article that came out that said Israel is now prepared for Iran's strike Iranian missile strike. Now you can see this actually came out today, April 23rd, 2025, and the article reads, the Israeli Air Force has carried out a military exercise simulating an Iranian missile strike on key defense infrastructures, Israeli media reported. And again, let me know your thoughts. Do you think it would be a good thing if we struck Iran? And we also heard them say that we heard Donald Trump say the United States would not likely be hitting Iran. It would be coming through Israel, but they would be on board, and we would see Israel and the United States unified in an attack against Iran. Now, you can see the drills come amid heightened tensions over nuclear negotiations between Iran and the United States. According to the Israel Defense Forces, the military exercise aimed to assess and improve operational readiness should talks collapse. And again, let me know if you think this is good, that we are ready to strike Iran. Put yes. If you think no, put no. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Now, Newsweek has reached out to the State Department as well as Iran and Israel's foreign ministry for comments. Here's why it matters. The drill reported by public broadcaster Khan and private publisher Ynet underscores Israel's intensifying concerns over Iran's nuclear ambitions and its military alliance. With the prospect of diplomacy faltering, Israeli forces are preparing for the potential consequences, including any Iranian response to a possible Israeli attack on Iran. Meanwhile, Iran's expanding strategic partnership, particularly with Russia, further complicate the regional power balance, drawing global powers deeper into the Middle Eastern tensions. And there you have it. And the concerns are, is this going to be leading to World War III? Is the United States and Israel going to be sided together against Russia, China, Iran, and potentially North Korea as well? We know that they are all deeply connected. Do you think that we are on the verge of World War III? And I see Dan Lutzka with a $10 super chat. Thank you so much. Says, on a scale of 1 to 10, how likely would World War III be to happen? Let me know your thoughts. If you think we're going to be entering into World War III, drop a 3 in the comments. If you think no, drop a 4. And also, if you haven't done so yet, take a second, hit that like button while you're dropping those 3s and 4s. But that's the question, Dan. We will see, because right now it does seem like sides are being drawn as tensions are escalating. So here's what to know. The Israeli military confirmed a recent simulation focused on missile attack targeting installations previously hit during Iranian offenses back in April and in October of 2024. These bases are considered critical for Israel's rapid response capabilities and national defense. The maneuver followed reports that a joint Israeli-American strike on Iran had been postponed due to intervention from the United States' President Donald Trump. Thank you, Andy Martin, for the $2 super chat. I see you. In effort to keep diplomatic channels open with Tehran, Israeli officials were reportedly surprised by a New York Times report last week that exposed the previous undisclosed plan. Russia has also deepened ties with Iran. On the same day as the Israeli drills, Russian President Vladimir Putin signed legislation ratifying a 20-year strategic partnership agreement with Iran. According to the RIA, or the Russia's state-run news agency, the agreement had initially been signed in January by Putin and Iranian President Mossad Pezeshkian. Putin also discussed Iran's nuclear program with Oman's Sultan Haitham bin Tariq al-Said during his visit to Moscow, and the Kremlin said, as Oman continues its mediation efforts between Tehran and Washington. Ambassador delivers a warning. Meanwhile, Mike Huckabee, newly appointed U.S. ambassador to Israel, has presented his diplomatic credentials to Israeli President Isaac Herzog. In their meeting, the two leaders asserted that Iran aims to destroy both Israel and the United States. It has always been their desire that Israel would be the opening act, and then it would be America's turn to face destruction. Or to put it in another simple way, Israel is the appetizer and the United States is the entree, Huckabee said. The U.S. and Israel have long accused Tehran of seeking nuclear arms, an allegation Iran denies. Israel is believed to have nuclear weapons already. What people are saying? Isaac Herzog, president of Israel, warned Tehran continues to pursue its radical vision of regional dominance and destabilization on its own and via its proxies, whilst pursuing nuclear arms and openly calling for the destruction of Israel. Mike Huckabee, the U.S. ambassador to Israel, stated, "It has been their desire that Israel would be the opening act, and then it would be America's turn to face destruction. Or to put it in another simple way, Israel is the appetizer, the United States is the entree." Vladimir Putin, president of Russia, said, "This truly breakthrough document is aimed at creating the necessary conditions for the stable and sustainable development of Russia and Iran and our entire common Eurasian region." So there you can see the unification of Russia and Iran. So what happens next? With U.S.-Iran nuclear talks set to resume on Saturday, both Israel and its allies are likely to maintain heightened military alertness as diplomatic efforts continue behind closed doors. So there you have it, you guys. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. We're hearing that we potentially could be on the verge here of attacks very soon, yet we're waiting to see what's going to be unfolding. We are waiting to see if Donald Trump is going to be able to work out some sort of an agreement between the United States and Iran and Israel. If they cannot reach an agreement, we potentially could see attacks on Iranian military bases, facilities, oil refineries, nuclear facilities. They are saying by no means can Iran have nuclear weapons. However, at the same time, we're hearing Iran is connecting with Russia and also trying to connect with China. And let me know your thoughts again in the comments. Are we on the verge of World War III? If yes, drop a 3. If no, put a 4. And hit that like button for me. But let's take a look at some more video footage to get some more perspective as to what is going on and the threat of the nuclear program of Iran against the United States and Israel. Let's go ahead and take a look at this video footage.
Welcome back, America. Tom Cotton is uniquely situated to know what's going on with Iran. He sits on the Armed Services Committee. He's chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee, so he has a lot of information. And Senator, I'm not asking you to violate any secrets, obviously, or anything of that sort. Is Iran really close to having a nuclear weapon? And is that something we should take seriously? Or as some people say, it's very manageable. Don't be a warmonger. Don't interfere. Don't be a neocon. Just let the good little terrorists do whatever they're going to do, and we'll be just fine.
Yeah, Mark, Iran is very close to having a nuclear weapon, and it's something that we should fear and that we shouldn't tolerate. Donald Trump's been very clear about this for as long as he's been in politics, going back 10 years. In fact, the first conversation I ever had with Donald Trump, he was coming to Arkansas to speak at a Republican Party dinner. I happened to be going to Vienna that weekend to meet with the International Atomic Energy Agency. And he called me and he said that the one thing we can't do is let Iran have a nuclear weapon. And he's been clear about that publicly over and over again, because Iran is not a normal nation. It's a fanatical, theocratic dictatorship. And if they get nuclear weapons, they're likely to use them. How close are they? They have enough enriched uranium now that they could probably produce enough weapons grade in just a matter of days, maybe a few weeks. And then it's only a matter of marrying up that nuclear weapon to the missiles they already have that can reach our friends in Israel and throughout the Middle East. But it's worse than that, Mark. They have a space launch program, which is really just flimsy cover for a ballistic missile program. And they're probably just a few years away from having missiles that could hit us here in the United States, that could hit Florida or Arkansas or Washington, D.C. So it is a grave threat, not just to our friends in the Middle East, but to the United States itself. And that's why President Trump has been completely clear that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. And Mark, I think it's important to remember how we got to this point as well. We got here because of the terrible Obama deal with Iran that allowed them to enrich uranium, that allowed them to keep all their centrifuges, that allowed them to continue research into ballistic missiles. President Trump has been clear that Iran has no reason to enrich uranium. They therefore have no reason to keep their centrifuges, and they certainly have no reason to be developing intercontinental missiles that could hit the United States. If Iran is willing to make a deal on those terms, then as President Trump said last week, we can have peace, and they can live happily without death. But if they insist on keeping all that enriched uranium and all those centrifuges and their missile program, as he has said, we're going to have to take a different path.
In other words, they need to dismantle this, and it needs to be provable in a way in the past it hasn't been provable because they cheat and they lie and they steal. I mean, after all, they are terrorists, and just because they sign a piece of paper, oh, yeah, we'll sign whatever you give us. So oh, yeah, sure. It means absolutely nothing. I have complete faith in Donald Trump on this. He's the right man at the right time. I have complete faith in Benjamin Netanyahu. He's the right man at the right time. And I think there's a lot of static out there by a cabal of individuals who seem to think that that nuclear weapons in the hands of an enemy, not just any enemy, but one that doesn't even believe in mutually assured destruction, it just believes in destruction, is manageable or it's okay. And I'm not willing to bet our country, society, my children and grandchildren on that. Are you?
No, absolutely not, Mark. And I agree with you. I have confidence in President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu. They understand the stakes here. They understand that the only acceptable deal is one in which Iran dismantles its nuclear program, turns over its enriched uranium, turns over its centrifuges, stops ballistic missile research. Libya did the exact same thing in 2003. It was scared straight. It threw open the doors. It let us come in and take away all of its nuclear programs as well as biological and chemical weapons programs as well. And we took Libya off the list of state sponsors of terrorism. We lifted sanctions on them. They became a de facto ally, even though Muammar Gaddafi still had a lot of American blood on his hands in the past. There's a clear model for what a good, enforceable, verifiable deal would look like here. It does not involve any enrichment of uranium or Iran possessing centrifuges or continuing its production of ballistic missiles. That's the kind of deal that President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu have both been clear about for many years.
You know, Senator, if Iran doesn't intend to build nuclear weapons to harm us or anybody else, then what's the problem? Why don't they dismantle it? But if they won't dismantle it, then they revealed what they're really up to.
Well, they claim they want a nuclear energy program. There are plenty of countries around the world that have nuclear energy and don't enrich uranium, that don't have centrifuges, that acquire it from countries that do. There's no reason for Iran, as you say, to have this vast nuclear infrastructure. That's why they're only a few months away from getting the bomb. It's what Barack Obama let them get.
It's funny, they sell their oil to communist China. I guess they're not exactly running out of energy, but they're liars, they're thieves, and they're terrorists. That's what the regime is. That's the bottom line. Senator Tom Cotton, thank you.
There you have it, you guys. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Do you agree with him? Do you agree that Iran by no means can have any type of weapons because he said that they are terrorists and he said that they are trying to create these weapons to hit the United States and to hit Israel? Well, we're hearing that right now the United States and Israel, they are on the same page, the same side. Now, we had heard that Donald Trump had actually asked Israel not to strike yet because he wants to try to go the route of diplomacy and see if there can be a deal reached that can stop Iran's nuclear facilities from progressing in enriching uranium. However, we're going to be seeing if they're able to reach some sort of diplomatic agreement or if there is going to need to be attacks. And as we saw from the previous article I shared with you, take a look here. Israel is preparing for an Iranian missile strike. And now you can see here the United States and Israel are on the same side. And it says U.S. President Donald Trump has said that he and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu are united on Iran, following a phone call amid renewed nuclear talks between Washington and Tehran. The call went very well. We are on the same side of every issue, Trump said on his social media platform as American and Iranian diplomats prepare to resume negotiations this week. So they are extending this out even further. Newsweek has reached out to the State Department as well as Iran and Israel's foreign ministries for comments. Now, here's why it matters. Trump's show of unity with Netanyahu comes at a pivotal time in the United States-Iran relations. The decision to resume direct talks marks a significant diplomatic shift, but it also places pressure on America's closest Middle Eastern ally. Israel has repeatedly warned against concessions to Tehran, saying that Iran must never be allowed to acquire a nuclear weapon. Trump's balancing act between advancing diplomacy and preserving strategic alliances will shape outcomes in the region. Now, here's what to know. Trump and Netanyahu, the phone call took place on Tuesday with the U.S. president describing it as harmonious and far-reaching. Trump said the two leaders were aligned on every issue, including Iran and trade. Trump also told reporters on Monday that his administration had held good meetings with Iranian officials. The nuclear discussions, which began in Oman and continued in Rome, are expected to resume on Saturday. Iran accuses Israel of undermining the talks. Now, while Washington has signaled openness to diplomacy, Iran accused Israel of trying to undermine the talks. The charge reflects growing tensions between the two regional powers. Even as the United States seeks to reestablish dialogue with Tehran, the New York Times reported last week that Trump has privately advised Israel to delay any potential military action targeting Iran's nuclear facilities in order to give diplomacy a chance. So there you have it, you guys. That's what we've been hearing. Israel is ready to strike. Donald Trump is saying, not yet. Let's see if we can do this diplomatically, but if not, the missiles are ready. Netanyahu, however, reiterated Israel's position that it will act alone if necessary. He warned that even if the United States continues negotiations, Israel will never allow Iran to obtain nuclear weapons. The U.S. and Israel have long accused Tehran of seeking nuclear arms, an allegation Iran denies. Tehran insists its program is strictly for civilian use. Israel is believed to have nuclear weapons already. Now, elsewhere, the U.S. has imposed new sanctions on Saeed Asaladul Eman Majam, an Iranian shipping magnate and his corporate network for facilitating the export of Iranian liquefied petroleum gas and crude oil. According to the Treasury Department, his network has been responsible for transporting hundreds of millions of dollars worth of Iranian energy produced to international markets, or products to international markets. And that's actually what we just heard in the last video. So what are people saying here? Well, the U.S. President Donald Trump wrote, "The call went very well. We are on the same side on every issue." Iranian Foreign Minister spokesperson said a kind of coalition is forming to undermine and to disrupt the diplomatic process, adding that Israel was behind these efforts. U.S. Secretary of the Treasury Scott Bessent said Eman Jamak and his network sought to export thousands of shipments of LPG, including from the United States, to evade U.S. sanctions and generate revenue for Iran. So what happens next? U.S.-Iran nuclear talks are scheduled to resume Saturday in Oman. Both the substance of the talks and Israel's next move will be closely watched by allies and adversaries alike. So there you have it, you guys. United States and Israel are on the same side, and Israel is preparing for an Iran missile strike. So we're going to be seeing what unfolds here. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Do you think that we're going to have diplomatic solutions to this? Is there going to be a deal done? If you think so, put deal in the comments. If you think that there is going to be war, put war. Let me know your thoughts. Deal or war? And while you're dropping in your deal or your war, don't forget to take a quick second, hit that like button for me. And let's go ahead, though, and take a look at some more video footage coming out here as we're saying, will Trump, Iran negotiation be a global flashpoint? We are at a fork in the road. Something has got to happen here, and soon. Let's go ahead and take a look.
Welcome back, America. We're here with our friend Ben Domenech, the editor-at-large of The Spectator, Fox News contributor. You know, Ben, I think people underestimate Donald Trump in so many ways. He is very prudential. He's not ideological about matters domestic or foreign. He tries to figure out ways to make things work, and then at some point, you know, he'll conclude one way or the other. How do you think this whole Iranian negotiation is going to do? Keep in mind, he has some advisors that I'm sure are pressing him very, very hard that under no circumstances take action with the Iranians. Well, and he's got some advisors obviously advising him, you know, we don't think, Mr. President, that this kind of negotiation is going to work out. How do you think this is going to wind up?
Well, I think that the attitude, based on what I've been hearing, both from people who are adjacent to the current officials, and quite frankly, from people who know what was going on internally in the Biden administration in the closing months, that Donald Trump faces a real fork in the road that's coming here about whether these negotiations are even possible, whether there's anything to be gained from them, or whether this is a true flashpoint for the world, really. And obviously, there's a lot of different relationships you have to factor into this. He's surrounded himself with a team of people who have different opinions, whether you're Marco Rubio or Mike Waltz or the people who are working underneath them, whether you're Tulsi Gabbard or J.D. Vance, Pete Hegseth obviously in the mix as well. He's getting a lot of different ideas from a lot of different people. But I also think that his relationship with Benjamin Netanyahu can't be underestimated as being a major factor in this. He knows and trusts Bibi to a much greater degree than he does other world leaders. Certainly, they have a much better relationship than Netanyahu had with the entire Biden team. And I think that has to factor into this to a greater degree than it would perhaps under a different president. He is prudential, as you said, and he's very much of a mind that he wants to be known as a peacemaker. But if he truly believes that there is no progress to be made in negotiation with Iran, I don't think he's going to hesitate when he gets to that point to pull the trigger.
Why do you think so many, maybe not so many, but at least the cabal of self-appointed influencers and others are so cocksure that if Iran gets a nuclear weapon, if Iran does, it's manageable? Well, where the hell does that come from?
Well, it only flies in the face of everything that we've thought about in foreign policy for the last several decades. I think that cocksure is the right word to use for this. I wouldn't underestimate, though, Mark, also the fact that there is a very dedicated campaign, a well-funded campaign, in fact, I believe, to undermine the American relationship with Israel that has been going on for years, some of it in plain sight, some of it behind the scenes, well-funded and very active, trying to influence American policy in every way that they can. And part of that has been, I believe, a lobbying effort that has unfortunately swallowed up some of the people who are traditionally thought of as being on the right, to some arguments that I think they would be wiser to ignore and should understand where they're actually coming from. Our relationship with Israel is in our interest. It is not just a situation where we feel the way that we do because of our friendship or because of the influence of evangelical Christians or anything along those lines. It is in our national security interest to keep that relationship as strong as ever, and I believe that they are prepared to do what it takes if they're given the permission and the backing, and perhaps not even need the resources of the United States. That depends on what they want to do.
You make such a great point. I mean, we've watched over the last 2 years or so, Israel has all but defeated Hamas, all but defeated Hezbollah. Nobody even thought that was possible. The enemy of the United States, Hezbollah, murdered Marines. Hezbollah blew up 2 of our embassies. They were funded by Iran. Iran has sought to assassinate our president. I mean, what's the trigger line here at some point? Why do they keep saying Israel's trying to drag us into a war when Iran's made it quite obvious that they want to take us out, or at least our leaders out?
Look, I think that the question really is the trigger point, as you said. But again, what your example, I think, applies here as well, which is that Israel is perfectly capable of doing these things themselves. They've had plans in place for forever. They know how to approach this, and they've just proven that they can do things that a lot of people in America didn't think they were going to be able to do once they had the backing and the permission to do it. And then, sometimes without that too, because they knew what needed to be done.
Hey.
There you have it, you guys. Man, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Are we going to be going to war here very soon? As I shared with you, all the headlines coming out, we are seeing the United States and Israel, they are on the same page. You can see right here regarding Iran. Trump says that the United States and Israel, they're on the same side over Iran. Now, the United States, we are trying to get a diplomatic deal done between Iran's nuclear facility program and the U.S. and Israel. We're trying to see, he said, Donald Trump, if we can reach some sort of diplomatic agreement. But Israel, we're hearing they are ready to strike. Take a look. Coming out today, Israel prepares for an Iran missile strike. Now, all the while, we also have Iran briefing China as it accuses Israel of undermining U.S. nuclear talks. We also have Iran discussing nuclear talks with Russia. U.S.-Iran nuclear talks now are involving Russia, and we're hearing that Russia has unified with Iran, their militaries. So sides are essentially being drawn here, but take a look. Israel is still eyeing a limited attack on Iran's nuclear facilities. They're saying by no means can they have a nuclear weapon. And we actually heard Benjamin Netanyahu in that article come out and say, listen, we are with you, the United States. However, if you do not take care of this, we will strike on our own. They said that we will wipe out Iran's nuclear capabilities. We can't allow their facilities to enrich the uranium any further. It is currently already too high, way past the point of where it is needed for energy. They are trying to get bombs, and we cannot allow this. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Do you agree? Now, we will see what unfolds. I will keep you up to date as more comes out on this. We're hearing that there is a lot unfolding today as well. We heard Russia and Ukraine. Things are falling apart with potential negotiations. Ukraine saying that they will not secede Crimea to Russia. And we are hearing that Donald Trump has criticized Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, for this. We also have the conflict taking place in the Middle East as well, and we've got our own trade wars going on here in the United States with China. I will keep you up to date on all of this so you know exactly what is going on as it comes out with the updates. But that is the latest, you guys. Thank you so much for joining me. If you haven't done so yet, please take a second, hit that like button. It looks like we actually only need 15 more likes to get 1,000 likes while we're live right now, today, April the 23rd, 2025. Hit that like button, subscribe to stay up to date if you like. It's totally free. Why not? But that is the latest, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining me, you guys, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care. God bless. This is Steve.